Welcome to the Software Showcase, Glenn.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Mark. Vice President of Information Technologies.
Thanks, Glenn, Project Manager. You know, we can't actually hear that video, so we don't know if the crazy samba carnival music played or not.
Oh.
And if it had, we would have danced, but
Breaks my
because
heart.
we couldn't hear the music, we didn't dance. So, for those of you who are watching at home, I hope you enjoyed our little intro video.
You're welcome. We didn't dance.
Glenn, it's great to be here on a Tuesday afternoon. It
Thank
must
you.
be Software Showcase time if it's the second
Indeed.
Tuesday.
And this week's guest is Reuben Swartz, who we'll get to know here in just a few moments. But interesting trivia. So if you were to look at all three of us and say, hey, who's the person that is oldest here? With this variable, actually, it's Reuben, but we'll get into more of that. So for those of you that are joining us live, we got a special treat. As always, the questions and answers channel is available to you. And Deborah Mullins, director of our administration services, is actually live there because so that way we don't actually just have to guess at your answers and make it up on the fly. You actually got one of the persons who's really responsible for a lot of the material we're going to be seeing today outside of Reuben himself. But let's actually get a chance to meet Reuben here. Who are you, Reuben?
Well, I'm Reuben, for all of you that don't know me. I've been working here as application developer for, it's been 8 years, something like that. And then I was here as a help desk before that. And so been here for quite a while.
So 8 years, certainly before my time.
But not before mine. I think you were going to say Reuben has more seniority than me, but he does not.
No,
okay.
Mark has me by 1 year.
I think I joined the
1 year,
organization
something
about
like
a year
that.
before Reuben
All
did.
right.
Yeah, so it's funny, many people might assume that Reuben actually came in as an intern, but he did not. Reuben actually predates any of our internship programs. We just plain old hired the guy to come in. I think for a year was kind of the agreement, right?
Well, I had kind of like a internship that wasn't really an internship.
Okay. Yeah,
So.
and that was before I was in the IT department, so I don't even think I met you those first months.
No.
You find good people, and I recommend you don't let them go. And so that's why Reuben is still here. For a long time, we kept him chained to the campus. He actually lived in our RV park for about 6 of those years or so.
5 years, actually.
5 years.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now he lives just off campus where we can still find him.
Yeah.
So
Oddly enough, the commute is still the same.
It's actually shorter now. It's actually
shorter.
shorter. Yes.
So anyway, Reuben is our really the primary developer on Port these days. I mean, you do most of the heavy lifting on Port. And you do a great job with that, along with many other tasks as well. So thanks for being here in the studio with us today, and thanks for being a part of the team. You're well appreciated.
So a lot of people who are probably tuning in today or watching this are maybe familiar with Port, but not everybody. What is Port?
Well, I'd be happy to answer that question since you've served that one up. So, about 5 years ago, we realized, there's a lot of Bible translation that's getting done because Wycliffe Associates is helping to make that possible. And in order to be good stewards of our time and our talent, and also to be able to communicate with our donors and even our field partners to be able to say what it is that we were doing, we realized we got to keep track of this. And at the time, we used cocktail napkins and pencils pretty well, but you can only get so far with that. And so we, of course, transitioned to using a database. Started out early trying to make translation database do the thing that we wanted. That wasn't going to work. We had some internal competencies with Dynamics CRM, which is the underlying platform underneath Port. So that was the obvious choice. So Reuben, myself, at the time, Vicky Leong from the past, and others kind of collaborated together, along with Craig Oliver, our producer extraordinary, who will show up in the PIP later on. Started work on Port, and it has evolved now for 5 years. I think we went live in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So we're coming up on 5+ years that we've been using Port. And it is, of course, the tracking and planning tool that's used by all of our field folks for planning translation projects, deciding about whether or not to fund them and be involved, all planning of the events, and all of the downtrack, how's the project going, getting reporting on all of that, and being able to track the software repositories as they come in, the translations as they come in and get uploaded, and all those kinds of things. So it's a very, very core piece of equipment, piece of software for the Ministry of Wycliffe Associates. In many ways, it serves like an enterprise resource planning tool, an ERP tool, if we were a regular business. So that is basically, its function. And after these 5 years, we are looking at a very significant upgrade that I think is going to be something that folks really appreciate. The user interface is changing a lot, but the nice thing is it's not changing in a way that you're going to log in and go, this is totally bizarre, I can't find anything. It's a really good evolution of the original user interface, Things are going to look a little different, but they're going to work better, smoother, easier, and I think even faster, which we're going to talk about later too.
Yeah, they haven't changed the interface in quite some time. It was due for a refresh with modern technologies, modern things. People are doing these days. Web moves fast.
Yes.
And so, although we're constantly evolving port to our customers' needs, this most recent set of updates is rather advantageous, but is also by the calendar clock here. We didn't actually force the necessity for an upgrade at this time, but actually Microsoft did that through the software that we use as the base.
Yeah. Unless you think we're early adopters, I think this UI upgrade became available over a year ago.
Yes. Yeah.
And we kept pressing the we would like to wait button until they finally said, there's no more waiting. This is it. December 1st or 2nd or something, I think, is the hard cutoff. So we're going to go a couple of weeks before that. And in fact, if it's not too early to talk about it, we're going to have what we're going to call a soft launch on this. So tomorrow, if you're watching this on the live stream, or tomorrow you'll get by email a link so that you can start using the new UI right away. It's not going to force you, if you go to port the way you normally have through a bookmark or whatever, you're going to still get the original UI that you're used to for about another week. But we're going to send you a special URL that has some additional things on it that tells the system, hey, I want to use the new user interface. So if you're interested in that, you'll be able to start using that tomorrow. You can get that in the email tomorrow when Glenn sends out his wrap-up email that'll have the YouTube link and all that stuff. And then Christine Jarka, I believe, is going to be arranging some trainings.
That's correct.
Do you have more info?
In the same email that I send you with the link to this video, you will see a chart of days and times that are available if that matches up with your schedule. If you do want training or just an overview of what's going on, it's not required, but that's available. And that will also be in the email that Christine sends as well. So that'll be a follow-up you have after our video.
Yeah. Now, my opinion on the UI upgrade is I think a lot of people won't need a lot of training, but I come at it from a certain perspective. I've been using Port and helping develop Port for more than 5 years, so I know it, pretty well, just like Reuben does and Craig and others. So for me, it didn't seem like a big change that was like, oh, I got to get a bunch of training. But that's fine. If you're uncomfortable or you're concerned, or if you just want to sit in and see, and hear kind of the new things beyond what we're going to talk about today, definitely do that training with Christine. So today's not really training. It's really an overview. We're going to talk about 3 things that we've identified that we think you're really going to like. Gives you a chance to see it and a chance to do the Q&A. Like we said, Deborah's online moderating the Q&A. We'll get to Q&A a little bit down track.
Right. And it is only 3, if we can stick to that. Because when we first approached Reuben and said, what would you like to show? There was like 12 to 20 different things. Like, no, too much. You have to pick your favorite 3. It was painstaking, but fun.
Yeah. So should we get to it?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think the first one up we wanted to see is the new navigation system.
Yes. So if we could get my screen real quick. So as you can see, this is Port as how you remember it. So how it is today. And to get to pretty much any other record, such as your languages or your organizations or projects, etc., you would come up over here and you would click on this little down arrow here and then select whichever item you wanted to from the list here. So I'm going to now switch to the new UI here, and you'll see things are actually different. So if you look over here on the left, the things that were at the top are now very nicely and neatly ordered down the left-hand side of the screen here. So everything that was here under project management now shows very nicely here on the list.
That is a breath of fresh air. Less chaos.
Yes. Yeah, there's less chaos. It's more organized down the left side of the screen, because normally you have a whole lot more horizontal real estate than you do vertical. So having it nicely off to the side of the screen there. And at the very bottom here, there is a switcher here. So people that work inside of Tech Advance or inside of publishing, etc., would then switch to their various different sections. But for the most part, everybody's going to be here within the project management area.
Now, Reuben, I see a hamburger on the top left there. If you click that, does it slide the menu in? Does it collapse it in?
It does indeed. So if you're working on stuff and you want even more real estate, you can slide this over here to get nice, and then you can still access all of your other things down the side here as well.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I can't stand when like menus and stuff take up a lot of the workspace.
Yep.
And so that's really nice that we've, it's kind of reduced that clutter and given you the main pane, which is where the actual work needs to happen. You've got a lot more space in there.
Your main everything is right there.
Now, I think earlier today we talked about the fact that at the moment we're using all the default icons there, so all those icons look alike. We would love to get suggestions from folks about, hey, what would be a language icon that would make sense for you? Maybe a little talking head or whatever. Anyway, so we'll probably customize lots of customizations to come in the future, right? This is really only the rollout of the new UI.
Oh yeah, we've really only scratched the surface. You know, as Glenn said, they have like 12 or 15 things. There's so many more possibilities of things we have that we haven't even. I've just made sure everything works and nothing breaks and people don't have problems on day one.
Do no harm.
Do no harm.
It's the
exactly.
Hippocratic oath of software.
Yeah. Do no harm. Anger no users.
There you go. Exactly.
Exactly. So I guess for the most part, the navigation, besides being moved over to the left, really hasn't changed a whole lot.
Yeah, I feel like I could now more easily find what I was looking for before.
Yep.
And it's really kind of the same action, but more convenient. So good.
Also over here in the navigation is the recent and pinned. So if you have a particular record that you wanted to come back to quite often, you can actually pin the record and have it show up here in this list, as well as recent, showing you recent dashboards, recent views, and recent records that you have gone to as well.
I'd like to camp on that for a second and just make a comment that I suspect that recent and pinned are two of the most underutilized functions in Port. So I know, like when I'm doing QA testing, for instance, and I'm using a handful of records to kind of try changing different combinations, make sure things do what they should, that pinned function is super helpful because I'll just go ahead and pin my event and a couple of workshops and the language and the organization or all the things that I expect to see change. I just pin them all, and then I can just pop right between them as I make changes and make sure that they're reflected where they belong. And the recents is the same way. The recents kind of manages itself, obviously, as you would expect. But that pinned function, I would think that if I was in the system regularly, for instance, if I was working on an event that was upcoming, the first thing I would do after I created that event is I would pin it. And I would keep it in my pin list for the next few weeks or a couple of months until the event was done, and then I would unpin it and I would pin the next things that I'm working on, because then you're just jumping straight to it as opposed to go to events, that's all the active events, go to find the events in my region or maybe search for it or all those things. Just little ways that you can just get right to the data that you care about.
Yep. It seems to behave much more like other software I'm already familiar with, like especially like email managers and that kind of thing. Like once I've found it, I can store it away, or I can look to this side for everything I want to be able to do as activities. It's nicely done.
Yeah, well, interestingly, pinned and recents have both been around for a long time. I just don't know that people use them a lot, so I like to.
They used to be up in the top bar. So back in the old UI, you actually have your recents right here, as well as anything that you had pinned shows up there as well.
Right, it would just automatically stay at the top.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. All right. Nice UI. So what's next?
Well, supposedly we're looking at forms, and now I know this is probably opening Pandora's box because there's a whole bunch of forms and layouts.
Yes. So we'll jump into things. So we're gonna jump into an organization here, and this is the second place of where you're going to actually hit the majority of all of the changes here. So I'm actually going to open up this record here. So previously what you had, let me jump back over here and we'll go open up the same organization so we can do so side by side. Do for project. So previously what you had is you had everything in a very vertical layout, and so you had everything going on down the screen here. So we have this information going on down and down and down and down. You just scroll for forever to find out what you what information that you're looking for. There has been a navigation here, but it's out of the way here and nobody really knows it exists. A lot of those things have been changed now in the new UI. So as you can see, all of those sections now are brought across the top. So behind the scenes, they refer to them as tabs, and they've referred to them as tabs for the greater part of 5 years, even though they don't actually do what tabs do. But now they actually do what tabs do. So as you move in between all of these different tabs, it's going to show you all of this different information here within those particular tabs. Also, what has changed is if you look back over here, you see this giant process takes up, a large part of the top of the screen. But in here, what they've done is they've actually made it so the process actually takes up a very small amount of the screen here. And each of these things has their individual fields inside of them. And so it's even easier to see, where things are in said process.
So that's I was just going to ask you what happened to the fields inside the stages of the process, because sometimes you want to look and see, well, what's missing? Why can't I, right now, if you tried to move this organization from training to engaging, I think it wouldn't let you. Yeah. So show us one more time what you did. So
you click on the stage itself. So you can see over here, it has a completed circle in there. And then over here, you can see this is where we're kind of in progress as we're moving through here. If I click on the link here, it actually just gives me a little pop out, gives me all of the information that's been in there as well.
And because that's on false, if you hit next stage, it says
it's
no dice file.
Like,
sorry.
Nope. Yep. Nope. Sorry. No can do.
Now, before anybody asks the question that always gets asked is, can we change the color? So it's not red. So I'm just going to ask, can we change the color so it's not red?
I'm fairly certain we can't, but I'll take a look at it.
I'm fairly certain we can't either, and I always say we can't, but I thought, well, maybe in the new UI we can change the color.
I mean, I haven't actually tried to in the UI yet. Like I said, we've just gotten to the beginning of everything, so, I mean, it's not something I looked at, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, okay. It's not a request, it's just a question.
Yeah, so also a couple of things. Timeline. This may look different for you guys because back over here we had this section here that had notes, posts, activities, and stuff. They took all of that and put it into one spot. So no more looking through like a whole bunch of different tabs to try and find information that you're looking for. It is right there.
Oh, so it's all in one timeline instead of being subdivided. And also I see that the search timeline is there, which I don't think it had that before.
Nope.
So assuming that means search timeline, does that mean if I type in a word that's in any of those posts or any of those things, it'll actually show up?
Yep.
Wow.
So bringing all across all that stuff. So if you know what you're looking for, you can they actually had even a filter in here too. So I could say, okay, let's get everything within, okay, I'm looking for an activity, or I'm looking for a post, or, I'm looking for a post by, say...
just the users instead of the
users instead of all the machine posts.
Let's see that. Let's just see that one.
Yeah, so if you had this in here, then all you have is... just
the ones that are from people.
Yeah, nice. Just Deborah and Chris testing things. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I think the next question we're going to get is there a way to always make it only show the user posts and make that like a permanent filter, or is that something that you have to do every time, I wonder?
So that's something that I have actually been asked, but unfortunately there's no way we have currently of doing that, but I'll pass it off to Microsoft and we'll see what they're always changing things and making things more configurable. So they're, especially with this new UI, there's a lot more we can do with this new UI than we could previously.
Cool.
So we've looked at organization, projects, events?
We have not looked at projects
or events.
All right.
No. But the changes to that are going to be pretty much the same. So let me go pop down here to projects, which I actually went past.
Yep.
Let's go grab projects here, and we're going to go grab a project out of here. So as you can see, it's pretty much the same here. So you have these tabs of information across the top here. One thing to mention is there's a related. So anybody, you probably never used this, but this is actually going to show a whole bunch of stuff here. But there's actually a way you can get to.
The old one we're looking at.
Yes, you could actually get to some other information there. So, which people didn't really use, and so it got kind of cluttered, as you can definitely tell. But we now actually have related here. You can actually get to specific stuff about a particular project or particular record very easily and less cluttered, and it makes it easier to get to some of that additional related data.
Good.
So there we go.
And
let's go probably to events here. So events got the same treatment. So I'm going to open up this project here, and so there is our events and our workshops and all of that stuff. And we have a nice handy little back button here. So which brings us back to your previous record. So there's our events.
Good.
Nice.
Now, earlier in the organization, you were showing us how we could use some of the filtering. Mm-hmm. We also can use filtering with lists as well.
Yes, with views.
Powerful.
Yeah, so the people that are more power users of Port have been building their own views and doing their own filtering for a really long time. People have done lots of stuff with filtering. And they've now made some of that a bit more intuitive, because there was some of this stuff which was kind of stuck behind advanced find, right. And so you really didn't know, like advanced find is really what it says, advanced.
Yeah.
So
not always intuitive,
but they've made things a little easier. So let's actually jump over here and look at some of the things that have changed inside of our views here. So one thing that we can actually do is, normally you had to actually click a button to then turn on filtering for things. So now we can actually go and say, I want to filter this by a particular region. So let's go grab, say for instance, Pacific. Oh,
that's nice. It gives you a little Ajax-y thing.
Yeah, it gives you a nice little thing here, and I can filter all this down to things that are inside of our Pacific region. So one thing that's really nice that they've done in the new UI is, and people that have done filtering beforehand will appreciate this, is when in the old UI, when you moved into a record here, so I opened up this record and then I went back,
your filters would go away.
My filters would go away.
Yep.
But now my
filters
persist, and so
but still they persisted.
They persist. So that's available there.
There's much rejoicing on the other side.
Yes. There's some people that when I originally showed it to Christine Jarka, she was like, "Yes, I finally get to." To do this.
Sometimes it's the little things in life.
Yeah, sometimes the little things in life. Also, advanced find, all of that advancedness is now actually in this handy-dandy little filter thing off the side here.
Look how different.
Yeah, it looks very pretty, doesn't it?
This is like a whole class into itself, I think.
Yes, it's a whole class into itself.
Oh, and I like that it brought in the filters you already had.
Yes.
Which in the original UI, of course, it would ask you, like, are you sure you're going to lose these? Do you want to save it as a view? I don't want to save it as a view.
And it shows you how it's done. It's already teaching you some of the logic if you've got a previous filter.
Yep. So that's there as well.
I know that we don't have advanced find in the script for today, but maybe I'm gonna press you a little bit later. I want to see a little bit more about how it does related data.
Yes. So one thing that's also really cool is if I were to open up one of these records here, there's this little icon up here to the side here. If I click on this, I can actually get a list of all the records. Mind you, these are filtered, based upon that filtering there.
So I can actually navigate to other language records.
Yes. So say you had a set of languages that you're going to be like going through in a list. I can just switch this over here, and I can switch to all of these languages.
That's huge, because previously you'd have to go back, and the screen repaints were fairly slow.
Yes.
And so now you don't have the interim repaint to go back to the list view and then come back forward. You're just only repainting that one pane. Yeah,
there used to be an up-down arrow over here on the right. Yeah, which you could use to move up and down in between things, but like where are you at in the list? Like jumping in between things is a little.
And sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes even though you launched from a list, it didn't. It there would be no down arrow. And anyway, that's really great. Nice. I like that.
Yep. So that's by far one of my favorite, little cool features that we have there.
Super helpful.
So
before we check into the questions, is there anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I think we should take a round of Q&A. I don't think I had something. Maybe the advanced find stuff, depending on how much Q&A we get. Okay. So just a note, post your questions in Q&A. We are, of course, available here to answer questions, and Deborah's also online if there's any questions. So
live.
I know I have access to the Q&A, but how are we doing, Mr. Producer? Do we have Q&A?
Hi, everybody. We have one question. It's anonymous. I'm guessing it's from Reuben's mom, because it says, does Reuben always smile this nice?
Aww. Yeah, and of course, the answer that we all know is, of course he does. He's the nicest guy on the whole team.
That's true. Thanks.
Oh, that is a serious question, but are there any other serious questions? that folks have for us before I maybe bend Reuben's arm and make him talk about Advanced Find.
Yeah.
No, I think we're ready to talk about Advanced Find.
All right, well, keep queuing up your questions if you have any. So why don't we jump into Advanced Find a little bit? This is an area that I really like.
Sure. Yeah, so Advanced Find essentially gives you all of the power that you had inside of the port database. So the port database stuff is, has fields and it has related to things, and everything is, this giant interconnected web of information.
Yeah.
And Advanced Find is really where you can get outside of the the confines of this view in order to filter by some really, really interesting things.
Yep.
So say, I
have something I'd like you to do.
Yes.
So I could give you. Okay, so let's go into events.
Okay.
And what I would like to find is events that have oral projects coming to them. So future events that are going to have oral projects coming to them.
Okay, great. Well,
so let me see how you do that in this new UI.
So I'm going to open up this right here. And so the first thing that we have here is the fact we're looking for events so we're going to add a row here. And we're going to say where the date, it's like we're looking for ones in the future, right?
Yeah, I think by the fact that they're active, that tells you they're pretty much going to be in the future.
Okay,
that's probably enough.
Then we'll cut that off. So
yeah, that's probably good enough.
So we're going to get oral projects. So if you have something from a related record, so it isn't actually on the event itself, we're going to click on this nice little add related entity.
Yep.
And then we're going to come over here. I can't actually see behind the camera.
Ruben is ducking around the camera to look at the screen.
So,
that's why Ruben is ducking down
Yes,
low.
that's why I'm ducking.
Do you want to switch positions for a second? You can actually see.
I can actually see it now. So we're going to find where...
It's got to be workshops.
Yeah, we're going to go grab our workshops from here. And then we're going to say... We're going to add another relation here to our project.
Yep.
And we're going to find...
There
all
we
of our
go.
projects where I'm fairly certain this is type, I want to say. Right?
Yes.
I'm fairly certain. Here we're going off...
It's either type or... look in there.
Let's see.
No, it's not
No,
type.
it's format, right?
Format.
So that's
sounds
going off
right.
script.
Yeah, this is what happens when your boss throws you off script.
Yes,
So let's see what we
exactly.
got.
Format, this
There
is
you go.
audio.
Oral or audio.
Oral,
let's do both.
Let's go with both. So you can actually put these together here.
Can you just put another one in the same row?
Yeah.
It looks like
I want to actually probably group them together though. So format is... Let's go... Actually, no, I think I can add it in the same row.
I think you can add it in the same row.
I can add it in the same row here. Oral or audio.
Ah,
There we
nice.
go.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, let's remove this row out of here. And then we're going to hit this apply button here. And then, wait, one more that has errors. Hold on. Where's our...
Oh, you have an extra that's empty.
I think this one is empty here.
It doesn't like that.
Yeah, let's pull that one out of here.
Try that.
There we go. Okay, there you go. So now...
There you go.
There's the one event there. So really, almost any query that you want to, besides something that is really, really, really complicated, is accessible through that advanced find window.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a little more intuitive to use than the previous one.
Yeah, the previous one had lots of buttons everywhere. You had to put in your thing, and then you had to then click on the results and then add your columns. But if you already has the columns that you want in it, you just want to filter it down, then you can just go from there.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah,
Good.
All right.
One last check with our QA channel.
We do have another question in the queue.
Okay.
Someone is asking, can you remind us when this new interface will be available?
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
So presumably everyone who's still staying with us at this point, you may have beforehand said, I know what I'm doing, I'm fine, I don't need to know. And then you saw what Reuben was showing, and you're going, yeah, I want that. So it's a perfect time to remind you that the email that comes out with this video will include that link if you want to be that early adopter, if you want to go into the new port UI that is being deployed, I think tomorrow?
Yep.
Tomorrow?
So the email should come out around lunchtime tomorrow.
Yeah.
Let's say midday.
Yep. And then following that will also be, for those that are interested, an email from Christine Jarka with schedules for anyone that wants to be also trained in some of not only the features you saw today, but a ton of them that we haven't had time to demo.
Right. Full detail. The hard cut, when you'll be forced into the new UI, is going to be in about a week, I think is what we discussed. So middle of next week, soft launch will end and it will be hard launch. So when you go into port in about a week, or so, 8 days or so, you are going to get the new UI. So, you can wait another week if you just really like the old one and just aren't ready to let it go yet. But after that, you're going to be in the new one. And again, I think people are going to find it to be a real improvement. One thing we haven't really talked about much today is the performance improvements.
Yes.
Yeah, so it seems like Microsoft has taken advantage of some of the newer web technologies that make the screens render faster. Yes. The previous one was pretty heavy. A page load might transfer a couple of megabytes of data, and it would cache some of that or whatever, but it was a little slow. Even stateside, closer to the data centers, it was a little slow. This one seems to be quite a bit lighter and faster. So
yeah, especially in forms as well, since they actually load tabs when the tabs appear instead of like loading all the data. So if what you need is like on one of the tabs, then why load all the data for all of them? Right. You can just go to specifically the piece of information that you need.
Yeah, those huge scrolling pages where you 2/3 of the page would be below the fold. It still loads all that stuff into the DOM, even though it's not shown. And if you don't need that stuff, it just takes all that time to render that anyway. So some nice improvements. And over time, folks may tell us, I really want this field to be on that first tab, because we use it a lot, and we can certainly make those rearrangements so that folks don't necessarily even have to look at all the tabs.
Especially since, we moved from everything being in tabs instead of in one giant scrolling list, people will start to be a little more like one more click to get to the information, so we actually will find out what information do people want front and center,
right? Yeah, people will be more discriminating about what's on that very first tab, the thing that loads on the screen for you. So any other QAs from the producer extraordinaire? We're getting the no.
Cool. Well, if I may,
let's
talk a little bit about next time. So we thank you for everyone who has subscribed. 81 of you have done that so far. We're trying to get to 100. So
19 more.
If you could help us out, that would be fantastic.
Listen, the important thing to know is Glenn and I both got our mothers to subscribe. Okay, so I think it's time for you to send. Reuben's mom needs to subscribe. You got to, help us out. We got to get to 100. I know there's more than 100 fans out there who care about this.
Apparently,
stuff.
she was watching too.
Well, I sent it to my mom and said, "Go on here and click on subscribe." And I don't know if you guys did or not, but we joked about that. So, anyway, please like it and subscribe it on YouTube.
Now, traditionally, we probably come to you about every 2 weeks or so. It just so happens at this point, the next 2 weeks would be landing right about Thanksgiving. So we're actually going to, with you, celebrate Thanksgiving away, and our next session will be on the 1st of December. And we'll be our guest that day will be Dennis Stewart, actually, and we'll be talking about print on demand. So that one actually will be on Tuesday, and it will be pre-recorded. So it'll be slightly different, but very familiar.
One of the fun things about print on demand, of course, is that this recording studio shares a space with print on demand. So actually,
right outside the
print on demand shop is just outside. So we took Glenn and I took Dennis out into the shop, got some B-roll of the actual machinery being used and things like that. So we're pretty excited about that. Print on demand really is that last mile for scripture accessibility. It's great to have your stuff translated, but it doesn't do you any good if you can't read it. And print on demand provides that ability for folks to actually have scripture printed out in booklet or book form, and to do that on site at a low cost, and to print just as many copies as they need.
Yeah, and that's not all we talk about. It's not even the coolest thing in my book that we show in that session.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe if you can, spread the word, and enjoy the new Port UI.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Woo! Glenn, it's great to be here with you today. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, and thank you, Reuben.
You're always welcome. Nice to have you too, Reuben.
We don't smile nearly as much as you do. You remind us how important that is.
Oh, you just brighten up the room. Thanks, Reuben. All right, thanks everybody. See you next time.